humans, and welcome to the Madhouse. I'm Josh, and today I want to talk about new things. Not New Year, because let's face it, it's a bit late for me to do a video on New Year's resolutions now. I'll do a blog post instead, that's fine. Besides, I don't really hold much of the principle, but I think it might be a good time to start. Who knows? Maybe I'll actually stick to them. But speaking of new things, this is the first video since my haircut, and with it styled by like this, I reckon if I were to age 40 years, I would look exactly like Emmett Brown from Back to the Future. Which I'm not going to diss because, well, I love those films. And speaking of the future, the first lot of books I want to mention in this book haul I'm doing are science fiction. This would be part one of my winter book haul. I normally just do a video per season, but I've already bought a lot of books this month and I just want to get them out of the way. I'm hoping not to buy any more until spring, so it should even itself out, because otherwise, well, I shall be living off super noodles for the next month. I jest, of course, I'm not that bad, but I have bought quite a few. The science fiction books I wanted to mention are Tales of 10 Words, stories by Arthur C. Clarke. I have not read much of his stuff. He wrote the novelisation of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which if you've seen the film you'll know is excellent. The book itself is excellent. There is Isaac Asimov Presents Intergalactic Empires. Now, Isaac Asimov, I've read some of his stuff, and it's incredible. He is probably one of the best modern science fiction writers. By modern, I mean the modern era. He is dead now, has been for quite a while. He's most well known for his robot series, but his other stuff, his high science fiction, is also fantastic. And this is one of the many books that he edited over his lifetime, so that it has stories from numerous science fiction writers compiled into here, from writers such as Robert Silverberg, with whom he worked on The Positronic Man, which is marvellous. There is Paul Anderson, Cordwainer Smith, Eric Frank Russell, Lloyd Biggle Jr., Alexei Panchin and H. Beam Piper. I love it. Or rather, I expect to love it. The next physical book to show you is Isaac Asimov's Foundation's Edge, which is the fourth book in the Foundation series. But I also bought copies of Foundation, Foundation and Empire, and Second Foundation. I just accidentally had it delivered to my parents' house instead. I kind of needed that for my studies. Foundation is perhaps one of the most ambitious science fiction series ever written. It is colossal in scale, set into the very distant future where the entire galaxy is being colonised. Obviously, the idea of an empire and science fiction typically means a galactic, not planetary empire. Using the science of psychohistory, they can predict the future with alarming accuracy in order to prevent, well, what could be classed as the end of humanity, because the Galactic Empire is going to fall no matter what, but depending on what path they take, it will either fall and be another 30,000 years before another one rises up to take its place, or only 1,000. And it's about the journey to make either one happen. And this is just a development of it that involves looking for Earth, because humanity has gone so far that it can't even find where it comes from. It's lost Earth now. There is Terry Pratchett presents Mrs. Bradshaw's Handbook to Travelling upon the Ankh-Morpork from Stowe Plains Hygienic Railway. Now, it's a Terry Pratchett book, so automatically I like it, but I love this because it is a non-fiction book from within a fictionalised world. But Mrs. Bradshaw's Handbook is obviously a reference to the actual Bradshaw guides that were created when the railways were built on our world. In this, the same thing happened in Discworld. You get to see the extent of the railways, what the towns are like along it. It is a Bradshaw's guide. Just expect more witches and trolls than fish and chip shops. There is Angelfall by Susan E., which I am really excited to pick up and read. This book takes the idea of angels in the more traditional way, the way that I absolutely adore, which is instead of the floaty creatures that come down and protect people and their souls so that everyone can live happily. No, these are the creatures of vengeance and destruction as seen in the Bible. the description says, "It has been 6 weeks since the angels returned to Earth and destroyed the world as we know it. When they fly away with a helpless little girl, her sister Penryn would do anything to get her back. I have heard that it contains a particularly strong female lead, so even more reason to be excited. I'm looking forward to actually pick this up. I got many recommendations for this, so I thought I would actually acquiesce." The God Stories by Layla Berg. This is not a book I expected to buy. It's not my usual cup of tea at all. It is a collection of retellings of Christian mythology, essentially. It takes a lot of inspiration from the Bible and the Talmud, and from various ethnic myths from around biblical settings as well, to create a collection of stories. I don't know what I'm going to make of this, but it was cheap and intriguing because I used to love this kind of book when I was at primary school. Of course, that was when I still believed in God, but you can't have everything, and maybe I'll still like it because I do love mythology, and there's no reason why Christian mythology should be any different from that of the Greeks. At least not in my book. I mean, it's not as though it's a dead religion anymore because of Hellenic revivalism. There is Room by Emma Donoghue. This is not a particularly pretty cover of it, but it was 99p, so I am not going to complain in the slightest. I picked up this book because I went to go and see Star Wars The Force Awakens the other day, and there was a trailer for this before the film, and it looked incredible. And the film is coming out at the end of the month. I might as well go and see it. And if I'm going to go and see it, I really should have some idea of what's happening beforehand. The next book is Moriarty by Anthony Horowitz. Horowitz is an author whose style I always enjoyed. He was not my favourite, but he was just fun. And I have to say, I am very excited for this book. I mean, for a start, Moriarty is an amazing character. Could I say that I am jumping for joy for it? No, because I do not jump for joy. I might do a little jump for you here. Nope, definitely not me. Regardless, looking forward to it. His other Sherlock Holmes novel, House of Silk, was incredible, but this one, Sherlock Holmes is Dead. Days after Holmes and Moriarty fall to their deaths at the Reichenbach Falls, London is in the grip of a fiendish new criminal mastermind. The discovery of a brutally murdered body in a leafy suburb catches the attention of Pinkerton agent Frederick Chase, freshly arrived from New York. Accompanied by Inspector Athelney Jones, a devoted student of Holmes' methods of investigation and deduction, Chase must forge a path through the darkest corners of the capital to shine a light on the shadowy figure, a man determined to engulf London in a tide of murder and menace. The game is afoot. What's not to love? The next book I want to mention is The Sixth Extinction by James Rollins. I love Rollins' work. It's fantastic. This is the 12th Sigma Force novel. I have read about 10 of them. They were all marvellous, just like Dan Brown, but with more science and more action. And from what I can tell, the science is far more realistic too. Though, not being a physicist, I'm a bit sure about some of the quantum things in well, I'll leave that one to you, because if I tell you it may spoil it. But this one sounds particularly exciting, especially if you know anything about Earth's prehistory. If you know anything about Earth's prehistory, you will know that there have been 5 mega-level extinction events, including the asteroid that supposedly killed the dinosaurs, an increase in the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere, and a lot of volcanic eruptions, that sort of thing. And this book is about the 6th. Happening just about now. Well, it says here, there is a new form of death buried under miles of ice in an ancient continent, Antarctica, and the coming extinction of mankind, and it has to be averted. Now, it's fun, and it may sound far-fetched, but to be fair, is any action and science book going to be not far-fetched? And as they go, these are particularly good. There is Ali Smith's The Accidental, which is about a girl who turns up at a house one day and everyone in the family thinks that she is there as a guest or a friend of someone else in the family, but really none of them know her. And it's their interaction with her, and it reveals all sorts of secrets that they all have. Love this book. I'm probably going to buy more Ali Smith books. Who knows, I'll have to check out some of Jen Campbell's videos on it because she really does go into a lot of detail about these. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past year, you probably know this book. You certainly know the author. The Silkworm by Robert Galbraith, otherwise known as J.K. Rowling, the most successful author in, well, the history of the planet. It's the second book in the Cormoran Shrike series, and it is marvellous, but I didn't actually own a copy for myself, and it's been quite a while since I picked it up now. I can barely remember what happened in it, but it was good, and I hope to rediscover that. I still haven't managed to read its sequel. What was that called? I don't remember. If you know, let me know. Ian Forster's A Rimless Review is an interesting read. I didn't like it the first time I read it. I was in my first year at college, and we had to read it. We had to study it for about an entire term, and I did not enjoy it at first. I thought it was unnecessarily long-winded, trying to be too clever at times, and there were one or two moments when I did think that the teacher's interpretation of what happened were a bit iffy. But then I read it a second time at my leisure over the following summer, and I realised just how clever it is. It is a look at class, what it means to be members of the upper classes, and whether or not that actually means anything, whether it restricts one's emotions, how one should deal with those emotions, and how society can be a trap. It's beautifully written by Ian Forster, who was very, very gay. So if you're looking for queer literature, even if it's not explicitly about queer people, although I have one or two ideas about that, that's a story for another time, well, this is the book for you. The next book I want to talk about is Passenger by Billy Cowie. Or Cowie. Let me know which one it is if you happen to know. It's a Scottish name. I don't quite know why I bought this. I went to the shop and it just caught my eye. The description says that Milan's sister is 42 and believes that only 147 people exist. She has never seen the moon, never tasted her favourite wine. As Milan attempts to introduce her to this world we live in, he discovers for himself just how strange it really is. Sounds quite fascinating to me, and a bit like Room in a way, because in Room they're all locked up in a tiny little room for years. The final physical book I'd like to mention is Annabel by Kathleen Winter. This is a book about an intersex person who is raised as a boy and comes to discover that things are not quite as they seem, that this boy Wayne has a feminine side to him who he comes to think of as Annabel, and apparently it's supposed to be sweet and slightly creepy. I mean, when I picked it up I thought that the cover was slightly frightening in a way. It seemed to be a rather sexualised look at a child, but then I realised it's not, it's just there. But it was slightly worrying because I've seen covers of Lolita quite similar to this, and, well, that doesn't bode well. Lolita is excellently written, but it's horrifying. So the audiobooks I wanted to mention then were The Martian by Andy Weir, which, well, I imagine you know what it is about by now, but it was marvellous to read. I read this as soon as I picked it up, really. Well, I picked it up, I didn't. As soon as I could. It was hilarious, far funnier than you'd expect for a story about a man stranded on Mars, and I think audio was probably the best format to encounter it first of all, although I'm hoping to get a physical book and the DVD at some point in the future. And then there was also The Subtle Knife and the Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman, which are the sequels to The Northern Lights, which I adored. I can't explain it. It just came across as a fantastic series, and I love the idea of it. The demons were marvellous, Lyra was such a fantastic character, and I'm halfway through The Subtle Knife right now, and I'm adoring it, but it's getting into realms of high fantasy here rather than the almost, well, you could call it urban or domestic fantasy, I suppose, or at least magical realism in a way that that world was very magical. I can't explain it, but You have to read it if you haven't. I don't care if kids' books aren't your thing. They're not really my thing anymore. But do it. Do it anyway. Oh, and there was also The Tales of Max Corrado by Ernest Brahma. Shoo fucking seagulls! Now, I have no idea what this one was about. It was just a Christmas present from Audible.com. Apparently they gave it to all of their readers. Or listeners, whatever. They gave a gift and that one was mine. Stephen Fry narrates it, so it can't be that bad. He has good taste in most things, I feel, although if he's being paid to do it, he may not care that much. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I didn't babble on too much. What do you think of my new shooting setup and the style of doing the hauls? Because I get bored of just, when I look back at them, doing me holding a book out. I want to do something a bit different. Also, just let me know if you've read any of these. There will be another haul video up in the near future, which will contain all of the non-fiction books I have bought. And to be honest, there are a lot of them. Not so many as these, I admit, but there are plenty. I just love books and, well, I do read pretty quickly, and if I have time over this summer, which I certainly plan to get my arse in gear and make sure that I read rather than spending hours on Tumblr, I should get through them before I go to Germany, because there's no way I can take that many books with me. Until next time, goodbye!